Welcome to Trulyfit, the online fitness marketplace connecting pros and clients through unique fitness business software.
All right, Eliz, thanks for being here with the Trulyfit Podcast. I've already given you an introduction on the front end so the listeners know, but let's give a brief bio of exactly how you got to do what it is that you're doing right now.
Well, my daughters would tell you that they gave me my job. My launch into stress management and health really started when I was 35 years old and 7 months pregnant with twins, when I suffered a massive heart attack. And that was a changing day. Anytime you become a parent is a changing day. Having twins would have been quite the overwhelming and uncertain sort of experience in life. But you add on top of that a heart attack, open heart surgery, and a C-section. That was a lot in one day. And we really had a lot of uncertainty and overwhelm thrown at us. But also, I was given the gift of really being very clear about what was important to me. And it was really those two little babies who, fortunately, even though they were 7 weeks early, were pretty darn healthy. And my husband. As long as I had that, I knew that I was willing to do anything to make sure that I got to be with them. And they're 20 now, healthy college students, and I am soon to be 56. So we've done pretty well. But in that process, I gained a lot of insight in terms of what to do to protect my heart. And a lot of that has to do with managing stress.
Well, my wife is currently pregnant in the third trimester, due July 8th. So I'm sure I will be using a lot of this information to manage my inevitable stress coming out. But, I know there is a lot of things when we talk about stress management that is sort of abstract, how to make sure that your well-being is sort of, together. But I want to delve directly into the physiological, right? The more science-based. Sure. What are the physiological components we're dealing with when we're talking about stress in the body?
Honestly, this is the thing that I find the most fascinating about stress. I often say that stress isn't good or bad. It's just a very hardwired reaction in our body. So let's say we're driving down the highway and we're getting to an on-ramp, and whoever's coming on, it's going fast. Maybe they're talking on their phone and they're not paying attention. You look to your left and there's a car there and you're not going to be able to get over. That is a stressful situation. Your body reacts, pumps cortisol into your system. That's the stress hormone. And that hormone makes all kinds of things happen in our body. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, our blood even gets stickier. So if we were in that car accident, we possibly wouldn't bleed to death. All great things when we're looking at a car accident, right? Now, let's say you're able to get over that person in the left lane hits the gas and makes room for you, and you get over, and now that crisis is passed. That cortisol comes back down, our blood pressure goes down, our heart rate goes down, our blood gets less sticky. Cool, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to go up when we need it, go back down when we don't. Problem is, when we're dealing with a high level of stress all of the time, that cortisol level stays high, our blood pressure stays high, our heart rate stays high, and our blood stays sticky. And guess what? That is not good for us. So that's the problem. That's a physiological thing that happens to us. And as a result, that high cortisol level can make us feel all kinds of different things. It can make us feel jittery. It makes it hard for us to get to sleep. It can have some psychological effects too. It impedes our ability to think creatively and critically because our brain is dealing with this high alert and not being able to sort of sort through things. When we need it, that cortisol reaction is great. And frankly, that's what makes life fun. Your body doesn't know the difference between that potential car accident and a surprise birthday party. Same reaction. That's what makes life fun. So life without stress, boring. You just need to get that cortisol level down when you don't need it.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And that reminds me of almost, when you're on a plane and you feel the turbulence going on and you think that this is it. So much so that you might have, made your last wishes to whatever higher power you believe in. And then the plane lands and you almost never talk about it, right? Because the cortisol levels have already dropped and it's already past you. So all that does make sense. So with that being said, what are the first steps in becoming stress proof? I know that typically in the personal training world, we talk about when taking first steps, the worst thing to do is go from 0 to 60. Meaning
Right.
you don't want to get off the couch one day having not worked out in a year and try to run a marathon, right? There needs to be sort of an incremental climb up that mountain. So what exactly
Right.
are those when becoming stress proof?
Well, I think small changes make big differences, that in all things. So when you're starting a fitness routine, small changes can make a big difference. Getting up off the couch, first step, good idea. Just get up. For stress, one of the first steps is just recognizing how much stress you're under. We get acclimated to a level of stress. We think this is normal. So without backing up and using some sort of measurement to say, ooh, I think I'm actually stressed. And that could just be paying attention. Am I having trouble sleeping? Am I having headaches or symptoms that would indicate, am I feeling jittery? Is my stomach upset? Are those sort of things can be clues that your stress level is really high. And things like staring blankly into your computer and wondering if you're ever going to string together a reasonable sentence again, that can also be a sign of stress. So paying attention is the first step. But then what is great is your body is naturally designed to let that cortisol out of your system. You can cue it to do that. So you're going to love this tip. I know you will. If you raise your heart rate, keep it up there for a while and let it come back down, that is signaling your body to let cortisol out of your system, which is why physical activity can be an antidote for stress. That's why a lot of the times when we work out, or even just taking a walk outside, we feel better because we've told our body, like, excuse me, time to let that go.
Well, that leads right to my next question. Is it not a crutch of some sort for us to tell our clients who are very stressed, right? Maybe they work in a high stress office, or maybe it's a young mom who has twins and she's dealing with crying toddlers at home, and they come in and they think the way to get rid of their stress is to sort of work it off, right? I need to run on the treadmill. I need to work out with my trainer. Is that not a crutch, or is that okay?
I don't think it's a crutch. I think it's actually a wonderful tool to be able to manage, to tell your body, okay, this is tough. Plus, it does a lot of other things. It's not just raising your heart rate. You're changing your breath when you're exercising, and that's another signal to your body to let that go. What's interesting is exercise isn't the only thing that changes our breath. I know before we started, you were talking about yoga. One of the ways that yoga is beneficial is that it does lengthen and deepen your breath. When we're stressed, we take short, little, shallow breaths. Anytime you lengthen and deepen them, that is another signal to let that cortisol go. So that's a great thing. Singing, if you're a fan of singing, either in a group, in a choir, or, in your car or your shower, again, you're lengthening and deepening breath, and that can be a signal. So finding those ways, those aren't crutches. Those are actually tools, skills that you can use to tell your body to let go of that cortisol, get it back down to normal, and be able to recover from particularly stress you can't avoid. The toddler is not going away. The job is not necessarily going away. You need to give your body a chance to recover.
Well, if you hear me sing, I promise you, your stress levels will not go down. So, so please don't ask me to sing. So I want to speak about uncertainty, which is a big portion of your book. And I actually write about uncertainty in my book as well. And what I talk about is, as a trainer, a lot of times you'll walk into a situation where you thought you had a plan. So maybe my plan was to put my client on the cable machine, and I had a whole workout design around the cable machine. And I walked in and there was already another trainer working with their client on that machine. Now I have to pivot and go into a different direction. Now, sometimes those curveballs can be nerve-wracking for trainers because they don't know what to do next. Their client sees that they're panicking, right? Their cortisol levels are going up, their adrenaline's up, and they don't know what to do. And that's a bad thing. So I talk about why it's important to get ahead of that, show up to the gym 30 minutes early, assess the situation, be ready for the curveballs, write out a few different alternatives. Now, is there a point, I'll come to the question finally, is there a point of diminishing returns? And what I mean by that is, can you be so over prepared where in turn that is causing you stress and you're doing too much?
Well, let's back up a second and talk about why that uncertainty is so stressful. Okay. Our brains like predictability. That is how they function. One of my favorite studies that I read as part of the preparation for my book is a study where they brought people in, clearly college students, because who else signs up for this? And it was a mock thing where you pick up a rock and either there's a fake snake underneath there or there's not. If there's a fake snake, you get an electrical shock. Again, who signs up for this? But okay. What they discovered in this, and I'm making this very simplified, what they discovered in this process was if you knew for sure that there wasn't a snake underneath there, clearly that's not stressful. If you knew for sure there was a snake under there, it was less stressful than not knowing. We don't like that unpredictability. I mean, think about it a different way. If you are called into your boss's office at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, one of three things is going to happen. Like, you love your boss, you have a great relationship, and that is not stressful. You know you've screwed up and you're probably getting fired. Stressful, but not as stressful as not knowing why you've been called in. So we like predictability. So what you're talking about is being prepared, making the plan. That is an attempt to make an unpredictable situation more predictable. Doesn't mean you get to use the cable machine. It means that you have the time to adjust if you can't. And there's a process in the book that I use, really looking at what are the things you can control and what are the things you can't control. You can control when you show up. That makes the situation feel more predictable. You can't necessarily control who's using that cable machine. So making a decision about what you can control, what you can't control, and then taking steps to control the things that you can and talk to yourself about those things in a way that makes you feel more secure. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are secure. You're creating that, you're manufacturing that security, which is the antidote to the uncertainty. Now, the other thing that I want to share is back in the day, I was a dance teacher and choreographer. I would go into schools and daycares, bring my bag of tricks and go in. I too would have a plan. It would also often be like hijacked by, oh, well, you can't have that room today. Or, guess what? Pink eye, whatever it was, you can't share any of your props that you brought that the kids really like. So one of the things that I always coached other teachers about was having a bag of tricks available. And for me, that was literally a bag of tricks. I had all kinds of things in my car that I could pull out and have the kids engage with. Same idea for coaches, I am sure. What's in your bag of tricks? When you feel secure in your bag of tricks, knowing that, okay, well, if the cable machine's not available, I can go do this. That makes you feel more secure as well.
Now, you can push back on this, and I don't mean to speak for you, but it seems like it's okay to be stressed because that allows you to understand how to control the stress, right? If I avoid stress at all costs, then when those curveballs come, I might not know how to react in my body, right? I almost want to be in circumstances in which I understand, like you talked about earlier, my body is this is considered a stressor, but I know what to do now.
Right. And you can't avoid all stress. I mean, if the last 15 months have taught us anything, things happen and we cannot control them. We can choose to control the things that we can, but we can't control who's allowed to come in to our place of business, who's sick, that sort of thing. completely out of our control over the last 15 months. That's just part of life. And I never talk about eliminating stress. I talk about recovering from the stress we can't avoid and really creating systems and skills so that we can do that and live, a purposeful, valuable life.
Do you give recommendations based on person or position or generation? If I am a CEO as compared to a low-level employee, if I am a woman compared to a male, if I was Gen Z compared to Gen X, are there different nuances of our personalities that make us more likely to cling to certain stress-related like fixers, for lack of a better term?
I love this question, and I have two ways to address it. First, I want to talk about the research that I did that, thousands of people in all kinds of job positions in actually all over the world, there isn't a difference in terms of what causes stress. Men, women, executives, frontline workers, the same things, consistently overwhelm and uncertainty, are the cause of stress. There are some differences by generation or possibly sort of life stage in terms of how we react to uncertainty. Depending on where you are, a change at work for boomers, they are almost out the door. So it's frustrating, but less stressful in some ways because they are getting closer and closer to retirement. So hopefully, planning wise, that isn't so much of a struggle. Xers where I am are hunkering down and just trying to weather the storm. But millennials are far less tolerant of uncertainty in the workplace. So the very moment things start to look sketchy, they are looking for the door. They are not going to be the last person off the train. And I'm interested to see when our Gen Z group enters what that is going to look like. So that's the research part of it. What do people need, and are there differences in terms of how we recover from stress? Absolutely, but it's not generational, gender, or anything else. It's what you actually need. So I'm sure that you have worked with some clients where perhaps you're trying to sit for yoga and they cannot shut off their brains. Like actually sitting and listening to their breath, it causes them more stress because they're thinking of all the things they could be doing right now. Stress recovery is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. The same strategies aren't going to be successful for everybody. It's finding out what you actually need. I tell a story about a trip that my husband and I took for his 50th birthday. He loves to scuba dive and I don't. My cardiologist would really not like me to scuba dive, but we live in Wisconsin, which means he dives in a very cold lake most of the time. This was a great, fun gift for his 50th birthday. We went down to warm water for him to scuba dive with two other couples. After they would scuba dive in the morning, we'd have lunch and the other couples would retire to the pool, which had actual iguanas running around the pool. We started to refer to our friends as the iguanas because they love to lay in the sun, have a little beverage, relax. That was great. My husband can't sit still that long. So we were in and out all day long doing different activities. Until one day, one of the gentlemen said to my husband, "When are you going to relax? You are go, go, go all the time." And my husband said, "I am relaxed. I'm like a border collie. If I don't have something to do, I start chewing on things." And it was one of those times in our relationships where it's like, oh, this is very true. Yeah. And that's the difference. There are some people that are more like our friends hanging out at the pool that like that quiet contemplative time. That's how they disconnect from the cause of stress. And there's some people that are more like my husband, where if they're not occupied and distracted, they can't help, but he's not chewing on furniture. He's chewing in his brain about what's in his inbox and whether the project that he delegated is being done. He needs the ability to be distracted and occupied so he's not thinking about the things that are causing him stress so that he can let that recovery happen. It's about what do you personally need, and recognizing that for yourself and perhaps in your own relationship. Maybe we don't need the same things.
Yeah. And I think understanding yourself in that context makes perfect sense. And I have, when I work with my trainers, there's two different kinds of trainers. I mean, there's more than that, but I divide them into two categories: direct and demonstrative. And the direct trainers are the ones who look at the body and they think it's a machine. They go, I can fix that. This is wrong. You have knee valgus, your hips are off, and I know how to fix it. And then there's more demonstrative trainers who provide an experience. They want to connect with their client. They want to ask them, what do you want to do today? How do I make this fun? It's about building experience. And neither is right or wrong, as long as you're giving your client what they want, and as long as you understand your personality and you're working to its advantage instead of working against yourself.
Sure, absolutely. And one type of coach is going to be a fit for some people, and another maybe for somebody else. And there may be people who need different things at different times. So there may be people who are kind of in the middle of a border collie and iguana, and sometimes they need to be highly distracted, and sometimes they do need that quiet contemplative time, and that's okay too. It's just recognizing what you need, and more importantly, giving yourself the permission to actually do it, because sometimes those things seem very selfish, like, oh, I'm going to go take an hour and work with my personal trainer. That's kind of selfish. I should be doing other things, like I need to be with my family. No, if that actually allows you to disconnect from what's causing you stress, even better, signals your body to let go of that cortisol, and you feel better at the end of it, that's not selfish. That is just maintenance of your system.
Yeah.
and really skills to live a healthy, productive life.
I want to go back to uncertainty. And one of my favorite orators and authors, he's a bit controversial, so I'm not going to say his name. If people can figure it out, they can figure it out. But basically, he says something to the extent, and I'll paraphrase, that we prefer a junk or fake theory to no theory at all. Meaning, as humans, we rather have bad information and pretend that's the answer than to have no answer at all. So sometimes when I'm putting something together, it's less stressful for me not to know. And I go, you know what, this is the answer. And I have to sort of take a step back and say, you know what, maybe I don't have all of the data yet, and I need to wait before I make an answer. Is there a technique or a process you use to remind people that it's okay to not know, basically?
Oh, that's a good question. And
I'll phrase it another way.
Sure.
Insofar as stress, if there is a situation, let me give you a situation in which the not knowing is inevitably going to cause the stress. Do I tell myself it's okay not to know? Or do I not go into the situation at all? How do I avoid the stress knowing I'm not going to know?
Oh, that's a really good question. And my answer to that is personal.
Sure.
So here's it, and it's why I really delved into this work, is after my girls were born and I'm recovering from heart surgery, and it was a very uncertain time because what happened to me is a rare complication of pregnancy. It very rarely happens, but unfortunately, most women it happens to don't survive it. I just happened to be in the hospital on bed rest. So I got great medical care right away, but my health was very uncertain, still is. It is what I carry with me. I have a part of my heart that doesn't beat anymore. So going out and do what I do, well, before everything happened in March of 2020,
sure,
I would get on a plane and go travel somewhere and speak to people, that's my job as a professional speaker. Leaving my house where everything is very safe and secure and I feel comfortable, and traveling somewhere else, that created a lot of anxiety, and I needed to be able to leave because staying in my house is not healthy. Need to be brave enough to go out there. But in order to do that, I really needed to think through the what ifs. Well, what if I go and I have a problem? So early on, still kind of today, I always know where the closest heart hospital is. I always know where, I'm really good at spotting the AEDs, the defibrillators in places, whether that's the airport or the hotel where I'm staying. I carry an emergency card in my wallet that gives all of the information someone would need if I'm not able to give information myself. Those are things I put in place for myself to handle the situation that can't be known. The same process, no matter what happens, it's the same process is what can I prepare myself? Like you were saying, show up early. What can I do in advance that will make going into this very uncertain situation feel more secure? And that's how you lower the stress of the situation.
Yeah. Well, there's only so much we can do, right?
Right.
You have your steps, you run down your list, you have your things, you feel comfortable enough. But like you said, stress is unavoidable. It's not that we need zero stress in our life. It's that we need to learn how to handle the stress.
Right.
That's what your book helps teach us. So why don't you let the listeners know where they can get more information, not just about your book, but where they can maybe find more about you or reach out to you directly?
They can go to stressproofnow.com. There you'll find the Border Collie iguana quiz. So if you want to know where you lie on that scale, you can find it there. You can, of course, find the link to my new book and really a treasure trove of articles and resources.
Go get the book, visit the site, find out if you're a border collie or an iguana. I can tell you right now, I know which one I am. Eliz, this was a pleasure, and I hope maybe we can speak again on another podcast in the future.
Oh, I would love to do that. Thanks. This has been a joy.